All right, welcome. This is going to be the first in a series of quarterly podcasts we're going to be doing with Dan Dierking, who is the head of NCREIF. And we're going to start out today by talking a little bit about NCREIF for those of you who aren't familiar with it. But each week, what we're going to do is focus more on, or each quarter, we're going to focus more and more on all the things that NCREIF is doing, because it came to our conclusion that so many people really don't understand all the wonderful things that they're working on at any given time. And so we're going to use this as a way to help keep people apprised of what's happening at NCREIF. So welcome, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
First question for those who don't know, what does NCREIF stand for, and who do you primarily serve?
Yeah. So NCREIF, the correct way of saying the acronym, stands for the National Council of Real Estate Investment Fiduciaries, hence the acronym. While it's a rather long name, it's a very powerful and meaningful name. Certainly it serves the real estate investment community, but the fiduciary word isn't important to understand, right? We're dealing with institutional private capital that has invested in commercial real estate through a variety of methods and funds and investment managers, all sitting in a fiduciary state. So it's important to have that word inside of there, and it really starts to serve kind of who we are.
Can you share the story behind NCREIF's founding and its mission?
Yeah, so NCREIF gets its roots all the way back to the 1970s, when plan sponsors and institutional capital started investing in commercial real estate. There really wasn't any method to understand how well real estate was performing. Our founding father, as we like to call him, Mr. Blake Eagle, worked for a company called the Russell Advisory Company, and they advised a variety of different pension plans on commercial real estate. And the story goes, as Blake has told it multiple times, is he was working with Citco. And he was saying, look, you need to get inside of commercial real estate. Here's the returns. Here's, you got income, you got appreciation. You can use it for a variety of methods. And the response was, hey, that's great and all, but you got to give me the equivalent of the S&P 500. How do I know how real estate is performing? At that point, the NPI was really born, the NCREIF Property Index. And Blake and his team spent the next few years working to put that together. And ultimately was launched in 1982 with 14 investment managers and 233 properties, and I think 500 million or something along those lines. So it was born, and that's really how we got our roots, and we've obviously expanded from there.
Well, it's been almost 50 years since that was first founded. So how has NCREIF evolved since its inception?
Yeah, so it's involved in a variety of ways. I mean, certainly, if you just think about the numbers that we talked about, right? 233 properties. We just released the NCREIF Property Index last quarter, just a few weeks ago, and we had 12,813 properties. So if you just think about the evolution from that aspect, NCREIF's sole purpose is really to advance the industry. And it's done that through a variety of methods, but certainly our easiest measurement is looking at the NPI when you think about the number of properties, number of members that we have, and the amount of market value associated with it. But you really can't talk about the evolution of NCREIF without a couple of other different items. It's one thing to launch an index in 1982. The industry was young and trying to mature. But what happened immediately after was there needed to be some standards associated with all of this. How are we actually doing the math behind fund level returns? How are we doing the accounting? How are we doing appraisals and valuation? And the reporting standards really set that foundation for a long run of advancement inside of the industry, because it provides transparency, it provides trust, and it allows more capital to ultimately flow inside of the industry, with all of that being supported by the indices and the reporting standards.
So who are the typical members or stakeholders of NCREIF, and what value do they derive from the organization, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, our members today, we've got about 500 members. and they're split into a variety of different stakeholders. First and foremost would be our investors, right? These are your large pension plans, large state plans. We've got some sovereign wealth funds, endowment. Where the capital is coming from is certainly a stakeholder, but our second and primary stakeholder would be our investment managers. We've got a little bit over 100 different investment managers today that use that capital to invest in different vehicles, right? So it could be open-ended funds, closed-ended funds. There's some daily price funds. There's a variety of methods that capital is invested. We capture a lot of that data and produce a lot of different indices. So there's a lot of value in understanding how real estate is performing. We also service a large professional services side of the industry. So we've got investors, we've got managers, but there's a lot of other components that make this industry move forward. So you're talking about accountants, consultants, individual appraisers, technology firms, and we've really actually seen that membership category expand over the last couple of years as more and more opportunity in data presents itself. We've seen some expansion there. And finally, one of the core stakeholders of our industry and often overlooked is our academic community. We have close to 70 different academic members. They do a variety of research that supports not only the industries and the data that we collect, but also their own internal advancement of their offerings inside of the university. So it's a little bit of an unsung hero on the academic side, but certainly we're servicing a lot of different people.
So what are some of the key products or industries or tools that NCREIF offers?
Yeah. So we've covered the NPI, right? Our NCREIF Property Index. And we can produce an index with less than 10 fields, right? You really need market value, you need some CapEx, partial sales. You put all that together and you can generate an index. But we collect over 100 different data points for each individual property. So we do recognize that we ask a lot from our managers that are contributing the data, but that data is then used to develop a variety of analytical tools. So this could be query tools. We've got some dashboards, and we have a variety of other, KPIs or other performance measures that really help the industry. You can see NOI growth. You can see occupancy, you can understand expenses. Most recently, we've been getting a lot of different requests to try to understand insurance. As insurance rates continue to rise, more and more analysis is going in there. We collect on a quarterly basis, total expense of insurance for each individual property. So if you want to see, spend for apartments, you can do it. If you want to see insurance spend for apartments in a certain region or in Miami, you can do it, right? So we are able to provide a variety of different products from that side. But regardless of the property side, we have a large fund offering as well. As great as the NPI is and as widely used as it is, we do have the Odyssey Index, the Open-End Diversified Core Equity Index. And this index was launched in 2005, and the timing was right for it back then, right? Because we've ran its course on the NPI, but we really needed a benchmark. We needed to understand what was going on inside of the investable universe. Odyssey offers all of that. These are fund level returns, so it's taking into account leverage, it's taking into account cash, it's taking into account structuring and joint venturing. But more importantly, what the Odyssey gives you is it gives you a really clear understanding of what funds are inside of the index. And then you can really understand what that peer set is. So you can explain your performance against it in a much, much easier way than, say, the NPI is, where it's just pure property performance. So the Odyssey has been a wonderful product for us as well. And we service other areas as well. We've got some closed-end products, daily price, and we actually work with farmland. We have a property index there, quite a bit of institutional capital focused on that end, and we do timberland both at the property and fund level. So we've got plenty going on, certainly.
So if I was a financial advisor, for example, advising high net worth or mass affluent accredited investor type clients, and I was looking for a benchmark, I realize there's a lot of differences in the types of products that are available for the retail investor side of the equation. But Are these indices appropriate benchmarks for them to be using? And if so, in what way?
Yeah, we believe they are. They're starting to be used more and more as retail capital is starting to flow inside of the commercial real estate investment community. Um, it's more specifically on non-traded REITs or more non-public REITs. This is exactly where they should be looking, because again, it is measuring that private capital on the real estate end. It's impacted by the economy and other things, but it's not a typical public REIT investment per se. So from that angle, they absolutely should be using it.
Does NCREIF do anything to help educate the market about its products and services? Does it do anything to help keep people connected and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so certainly the products around the data are a core competency for us. But being a non-for-profit industry association, we do service the industry in a variety of other methods. First one being we hold two conferences a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. That will obviously give you some beneficial content. We'll let you know what's going on in the economy, have some very targeted panels. But we also offer to all of our members a unique opportunity to join a different committee. We have 10 different committees today. So if we have an accounting committee, we've got evaluation, performance, research, a variety of other different committees. It really gives you the opportunity to get inside of these specific committees and talk about what's going on inside of your function. Accounting, for example, there's a variety of different, regulatory that comes in that needs to be talked about on a fairly regular basis. You can sit with other accountants and learn from them and talk to your peers. Same is true on the valuation end. Valuations have been a very hot topic over the last couple of years. You can again sit down and talk about, what are some of your challenges? How are you resolving this? So from an industry perspective, bringing the industry together is a key component of what we do today. To support all of that, we do have an education program as well. We call it the NCREIF Academy. It has 11 different courses today that we offer throughout the year, most of which are in person. We do believe, in-person provides a variety of benefits over virtual, primarily getting together and again, learning from your peers and meeting peers. It fosters that networking and the relationships that you end up using throughout your career. So we do a lot of that in person, and we offer those classes throughout the year and for you to take.
Now, you also have a website, and some of the information that NCREIF provides to its members is available only to members. But what's available to the general public?
Yeah, the general public, for example, the education-wise is available to anybody. You don't need to be a member. If you're interested in learning about institutional real estate, you are welcome to attend. And that's part of our mission to really advance the industry. Also on the public side, we do offer a limited amount of data. So you can see what is going on within the indices. For example, every quarter, you'll be able to see the returns for the NPI, Odyssey, and several other different indices. We'll provide you a snapshot. So you're able to, if you wanted to, measure yourself against the performance. While the members get more detailed data, we still believe having that into the public, into the industry, regardless of if you're a member, ultimately advances all of that. So there is plenty of opportunity if you're not an NCREIF member to certainly learn and use some of the data that we produce.
Well, let's say I was the head of product review and underwriting, kind of a CIO for a private wealth advisory firm. Could I become a member of NCREIF? And what would be the advantage for me of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can become a member. We'll talk to you and help you understand its benefits. But from that aspect, you'll be able to see, you'll be able to join and certainly see how performance is on a quarter-to-quarter basis. But you'll also be able to see historically how things have performed. You'll be able to analyze, specific markets or potential investments that you're thinking about getting involved with. So it gives you an opportunity, even if you're not benchmarked against the data, it gives you the opportunity to really understand what's taking place inside of the commercial real estate investment industry.
So we've talked a little bit about how professionals, use the various products that NCREIF has, but can you talk a little bit more about that, how they're used?
Yeah. So again, outside of benchmarking, you can, if you're an appraiser, for example, and you're working on a specific market, you can see exactly what's taking place there. We've got occupancy. We're starting to add cap rates to that specific area, so you can start to see what's taking place with specific property types. So appraisers have a variety of benefits from a data standpoint. Research is probably research firms and economic firms probably have a large benefit as well as you start to look at a much larger macro approach to what's taking place. You can support some of that with some of our underlying investment information. So again, NOI growth is used quite a bit, occupancy. These are fundamentals that play into a lot of the different, economic and advisory roles that take place. Consultants obviously use a lot of this as they advise their clients. So the professional market has a variety of methods to leverage that information.
So it sounds like NCREIF is really promulgating standards in the industry. Of course, they can't force people to use them, but the members all adhere to a certain set of standards, which
Yep.
creates a certain uniformity to the data that's being presented, because that's one of the problems in the industry is lack of standardization of data, lack of comparability of data.
Right.
So you're addressing that. It also sounds like in terms of your negotiating and working through the committee process um, on issues like, accounting standards and things of that nature and how they're being adopted, you're actually kind of serving a governance mechanism for the industry as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you need all of that as being an industry association. And that's our advantage, right? We're trying to service the industry in a variety of methods, and our job is to make sure it's all cohesive and moving forward with the ultimate goal of advancing the industry and transparency.
Well, starting around 1977 to pull this together, we're really about 3 years shy of 50 years anniversary. Over that period of time, what are some of the more significant impacts NCREIF has had on the industry over the years, do you think?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest impact it's had, I think, has to go back to Odyssey. Odyssey has really been accepted as the benchmark for the industry. And it's not just open-end diversified core equity funds. I have conversations with core plus funds. I have conversations with closed-end funds that are using the Odyssey. I have conversations with non-private real estate folks that are using the Odyssey. The Odyssey is probably the biggest impact just because people are leveraging it, people understand it, they can explain it. And from a transparency perspective, right, the foundation that we stand on, it gives you all of that. You know the funds, the peer set, the strict rules associated with it. I think that's probably the largest impact that we've had. Certainly, we've done a lot to get to where we are today. But I feel like the Odyssey Index has helped us grow tremendously, especially over the last 20 years.
Now, are there any upcoming initiatives or changes in NCREIF's offerings that you can talk about?
Yeah, there's a couple things going on. It's funny you say, you're a few years short of 50 years on the MPI. The MPI, the NCREIF Property Index, is actually going to get quite a facelift over the next few quarters. It may have taken us 45 years to make a change, but we are making a change to the MPI. It traditionally it's been five property types, so it's apartment, office, industrial, retail, and hotel is also inside of there. Those were the property types back in 1977. If you think about the property types today, where the capital is investing, it's a lot more than just those five property types. And it was time to add those to the index. So what you'll see is a transformation of the MPI to move from not just those five property types, but all property types. Apartments, for example, being a primary property type today, will become a subtype of a larger residential property type, which will then be included with with student housing, manufactured housing, single family rental, right? This is where the capital is starting to go. We're going to start to incorporate life sciences. self-storage, which has been, some would argue mature for several years now, will finally make its way into the NPI. So we're really trying to align the NPI with the industry, where the capital is going, and where people need to measure and understand what's taking place inside of the specific real estate.
And how about debt? Debt is an area that's, right now, the two hot asset types in the marketplace are infrastructure and
Yeah,
private credit. And
yeah.
a subsector of private credit would be private real estate debt. And a lot of people are engaged in offering investments in that area. A lot of investors are interested in the area. Are you working on anything there?
We are. In fact, we just did a webinar earlier today related to it. So we've been working on a debt index for a few years now, and we've really tried to figure out, where do we want to start with debt? The capital stack with inside debt can be very complicated. And it took us a little bit to get focused. So what we ended up doing was, actually a few years ago, we ended up partnering with NCREIF, which is another association that services the debt side. And working with them, we were able to put together a debt aggregate. The debt aggregate is comprised of just open-ended funds. We figured we would start there. And we're calling it an aggregate primarily because it's just a big conglomerate of different debt funds. Different from Odyssey, where you absolutely know what the rules are and what's inside of there, and all of the different characteristics. The aggregate just wasn't specific enough, so we couldn't call it an index. However, we are working on creating an index, and it is our hope in 2025 to roll out the first open-end debt index that will be, again, comprised of open-ended funds. We've got now criteria, very specific, very understandable. So we'll continue to push down the debt road, assuming all goes well. There's thoughts around potentially doing closed-end debt, individual loan level debt, and all of that then ultimately leads to attribution. So there's a lot of questions around, how we get there and what the road looks like, but certainly sticking to our, fundamentals and kind of who we are, we intend to continue to advance the debt side of the industry with the transparency and normal approach that we have.
And going back to the intelligence side of the business, the ability to get up the learning curve, to learn more about this. Do you have research white papers, instructional manuals, things of that nature posted on the website that are accessible to the general public? Or
Yeah, so we have a variety of different materials that can help you get going. For each product, either within the report or within our website, there'll be an associated manual. So you'll be able to understand the data that's behind it, what's being collected, the definitions, and the methodology behind all of that. It is right now. It is a member area only, so you do need to become a member and get access to what we call the knowledge base. So those materials are in there, and then we do have different white papers or academic research papers available. Now it's been 40 years worth, so we don't have them all on there, but certainly some of the more relevant ones, or even some of the more customer focused ones or member focused ones, are available to you as well.
okay. So just in closing, what's a little known fact about NCREIF that you think the audience might find surprising?
Yeah, whenever I tell people that the NCREIF staff is 14 people, they are always amazed at that number. Now, I'm incredibly biased and incredibly proud of how much we do with so little staff. But the truth of the matter is, the reason why I think people are surprised is because we're producing all of these components and everything, products. But we can't do it without the members, right? We can't do it without the data. We can't do it without the committees. We can't do it without these task forces that, define, for example, what this debt report would look like. So while we are 14, we are a much larger organization when we facilitate the membership in. So it's an interesting fact, but it really drives home that we are member driven and rely very much on them.
And you really don't get a full understanding of how much work really gets done behind the scenes unless you go to an NCREIF meeting and see
Yeah.
the work that's being done. It's truly amazing. The energy level is just truly
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. I try and I fail, and I finally end up telling people just come to a conference. You try to explain what's going on, and you try to list all the different initiatives, and you try to explain that this is all volunteer and the amount of passion that is provided to all of this. You really can't understand and appreciate it till you see it in action. And it's very worthwhile. It's very motivating to myself and the staff. It's why we enjoy it. You know, the membership gives so much to the industry, and having that aspect is vital and great to see.
Well, part of our mission here at Institutional Real Estate Inc. has always been to improve the transparency of the industry. And that's why we're really supporting and always have been a supporter of NCREIF, which does so much to help make that happen. And we're just delighted to be a strategic partner of NCREIF and looking to continue our relationship and look for ways to help support the effort that they're doing. For those of you that weren't familiar with NCREIF, maybe in the private wealth advisory side of the marketplace, it's a wonderful resource for you. And Jan, how would they get a hold of your website? What is the website?
Yeah, so it's just ncreif.org, NCREIF.org. That will get you to the site. There's plenty of different methods to contact us. Certainly phone is fine. There's different forms. I can promise you if you reach out, we will certainly get back with you.
Terrific. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. And next quarter, we'll give another update from Dan and find a little bit more about what they're working on and what progress they're making. And we'll also, if you have any concerns or issues or questions that you'd like to ask or direct them either to me or to Dan. And we'll do our best to get back to you and help get your questions answered. Again, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the time.
You bet. Take care.